the fire of Atzilus, this is already a fire of God. This is where we say that there's an Eish, which is the Eish of Havaya. Because in Atzilus, there is no creation. It's only Him. So it's not really like something's longing for Hashem. It's Hashem's own longing, as it were. Atzilus in general is the Shem Havaya. The Gam Bechinas HaEish, Hu Bechinas Shem Havaya. So even Eish, which normally is the idea of Eish, that it burns towards something because it's longing for something, which is usually associated with creation, longing for its source. In Atzilus, where everything already is the source, there's still a fire there, but it's the Eish Havaya. It's not a longing for its source. It's the source just in a state of longing. We'll have to understand it. Yeah, it's complicated. We're gonna basically flush that out right now. L'hainu sharatzo hu madrigas elokus, which means that the longing is not for godliness, but it is a level of godliness called longing. Therefore, whatever it is, what does that mean to be longing not for something? But whatever it is, it's a type of longing and running of the ultimately highest nature. He says here, which we're going to go look up some sources, but not this one.
I was listening to something like this in Samachov.
Yeah.
They were saying, like, even in Ratzain of Etzem, it's like Matiyah, V'le Matiyah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like a little bit. So it's not like a real Ratzai, but it's like a little bit of Hamshacha, and then it's right away scowled back in its source. It's like Ratzain. It's not real Kaichas that are leaving and coming back, but it's like Mati lo Mati.
So Mati lo Mati usually starts like
and that's in Havaya. It's in
right. So usually we say it's like the inverse. In other words, the creation is longing to go back to its source, but the source is longing to bring about creation. You know, that's what Ratzon is. It's like it wants something, and it's not that it wants something because it sort of lacks something. It wants something because that's like its etzem desire. It's a desirous thing intrinsically. To shine, to reveal itself, to show itself. So this, like the Ratzon of Hashem, is really the Or Ein Sof coming out. The Ratzon of the Or, once it's out, is to go back in. But the Ratzon of the sort of the etzem is to extend itself. But anyway, he's gonna give us like a doozy of an answer for this. It comes kind of in a little bit, but I don't want to jump the gun. We'll sort of read through it. So he says, anyway, this is explained elsewhere, but in Haratzu be'esr spheres da'atzilus, right? There's something called the running inside of the 10 spheres of Atzilus, and he says, l'chura in Haratzu shayach rach v'nivra. Seemingly, the idea of running is only relevant for a created being, shumeruchach melukus, which is distant from God. There should be another sefer around here.
We should.
Right, so only something which is distant from God can run towards God. Aval be'elukus gufa mashayach ratzo. But in elukus, how is it even relevant to be running towards something? So we explain sheish b'chinas ava v'yira chitzonim ba'ava yira panimim. That there's the inner love and fear and the outer love and fear. Which means basically the inner dimension of the outer dimension of the heart and the inner dimension of the heart. That when it comes to the inner dimension of the heart, then it is relevant already that within godliness itself there is this desire. And he says, for example, Kamoa Chochma Yira La'alos Ela Keser. Within divinity, there's the concept that Chochma is afraid to raise itself up towards Keser. In other words, there's this notion that the light from above is too high for the spheres below it to accept it in like a face-to-face relationship. Right? There's this idea of face-to-face, back-to-back, and we didn't speak about it in this class yet, but there's also called face-to-back. Right? And what happens is when the face of the sphere above is shining down, the sphere below can't look at that directly. It's like it'll just like nullify. It's too much. It's afraid of it. So it has to look back. It has to give it its back. In other words, it wants to connect, but it can only connect sort of externally because there's a certain fear, whatever that means, inside the spheres themselves. They cannot handle the full intensity of the rays of God from the sphere above. And so that's what we're saying here, that there is such a thing as fear and love. Here we're talking about fear, but there's also, in other words, let's just read the next line. V'zeu b'chinas hashuv, right? The idea that chokhmah cannot come up to keser, so it has to come down. That's the idea of shuv. But there's also ratzo. In other words, there's also when keser won't shine its full light, or let's go down out of keser. Let's say chokhmah is now. Now we're dealing with chokhmah and bina. When chokhmah is going to shine its full light, bina has to give it the back. It can't handle it. But when chokhmah won't shine its full light, then bina will want to run to it, and it will have a ratzo, which is like reusa deliba, like an intense longing to be inside of its higher sphera, even though both of these two spheres are inside of elukus. They're chokhmah, bina, keser of atzilus. So even inside of the realms of godliness, there is this notion of ratzo v'shov. B'chinas nekudas halev, the very inner essence of the heart, it desires to cling to what's above it. V'zeu b'chinas eish havaya. Even this is not like a full explanation. He's gonna go on. This is called the fire of havaya, not the fire. Not where we say havaya is not found in fire, but dafka the fire of havaya. Gam yesh lomar. Shezeu al derech ma shekasuv b'makom acher be'inyan eish hamizbeach ve'eish hamenorah. This is like the difference between the fire of the altar and the fire of the menorah. The fire of the altar, hu b'chinas islavus b'murgash. Right, what's going on the altar's fire is that you're burning animals. An animal, when you burn them, it's a mess. It's a messy fire. It's a loud, sort of rough fire. You're burning skin and flesh. Not a pretty picture there. But it says, Eish tamid tukar al mizbeach. But there's a continuous fire burning on the mizbeach. V'zeu b'chinas hei gevuras de malchus sheyordos lebiyah. And in general, what is going on the mizbeach is that the mizbeach is outside of the heichel. Right? Where's the mizbeach found? There's a lot of kelim and implements inside of the temple in general. Some of them are inside, some of them are outside. So the mizbeach is outside. It's in like the ulam over there, the azara. And the idea is that this is the hey gevuras of malchus, and it was what's inside of the room. It's sort of a panemius of atzilus. And then when it comes outside, this is the idea of the lowest sphere of malchus coming down to bi'ah levara birurim, to make the refinement process. And it was elokus as it exits atzilus, comes down to the lower worlds where there's a feeling of creation, and then has to refine them. So the fire that's on the altar is that very thing. It's the fire of atzilus, which comes out of atzilus to refine the world, to refine the separate world. That's why what goes on the altar is that you take pieces of the world into the Beis HaMikdash and refine them and turn them into elukus. You take animals, you take salt, you take the mineral, vegetable, and animal. That's all the three levels of Bri, Tzir, and Asiyah. They're brought onto the Mizbeach, and the fire of the Mizbeach burns them up into elukus. So this is called the Gevuras of Malchus. In other words, the ability for Malchus to contract itself and go out into the lower worlds, bring a tiny little measure of divinity, and then raise up and refine what goes on the altar. That's why the outer altar was in the courtyard. It wasn't inside. Because the courtyard represents the outer world, the lower world. In other words, in general, you have the Kodesh HaKadoshim, where in there you have the ark, and in the ark you have the luchos, and a Sefer Torah was in there. So in general, the luchos is like keser, the Sefer Torah is chokhmah, and the ark that contains them is bina. So you have keser, chokhmah, and bina in there. And then when you come out into the kodesh, so you have the chesed, gevurah, tiferes is the shulchan and the menorah. What's that?
What's what?
The menorah is chesed, the shulchan is gevurah, and the mizbeach hapanimi is tiferes. And then whatever in the Maimer of Binyan HaMikdash and Tzemach Tzedek, Derech Matzotzecha, he explains this. When it comes to Netzach Hod Yesod, he brings it as a Yesh Lomar. He says there's a few more. There's two tables. One of gold and one of silver, or one of shayish and one of, I think it's one of gold and one of silver. They're like in the hallway out there, and that's Netzach and Hod. And there's a picture, like a carving of fruit, of grapes that hung on the wall of there. And he says that's Yesod. But Malchus is the altar, and it's Malchus as it already comes out of Atzilus into Biyah. And that's why you're burning the world on that altar, because it's basically bringing and raising up the world and refining it. But the point that we're trying to make is that this is like a loud fire, right? When you wind up a fire like that, it's the fire of Loba Hashem, Loba Eish Hashem, right? It's not a godly fire. It's a fire of creation burning to get to God. Aval Eish HaMenorah Nikud B'Shem Or. But the fire of the menorah is called light. It's not really called fire. It's the Eish HaMizbeach, but the menorah is called Or. She'enu B'chinis Islavus B'Murgash, meaning to say that its flame, like the Hanukkah candles, it's very mellow. It's like cute. It's quiet. It's sweet. It's b'sheket. It's not like a burning of an animal. It's like a wild, loud, angry fire. And what is this? Okay, so he's trying to describe what does it mean to have ratzo in Elokus itself, to have like a longing inside of Elokus, which is strange. Usually a longing for Elokus. He says this is like the fire which represents a pure devekis, right? For example, it's like that is created by the Re'iyah of Chokhmah. So Chokhmah is called, anyway, Re'iyah, sight, which means to say if you meditate upon something to the point where you're using your Bina, it's like you're sort of just hearing it, right? The idea of Bina is called Shmiya, and Chokhmah is called Re'iyah. What's the difference? Hearing and seeing. When you're working with Bina, it's like you're you're reading the news, right? Today we don't even know what it means to read the news. We see the news today. It's almost like Geula Dika type of world, right? Imagine if Rabashkin got out and all we had was a newspaper and a picture, right? So whatever was going on in 770, we'd have to imagine it basically. And certainly the first read is not going to give you the same type of connection to the event like when you just see what's going on in there, like you're mamash in there with them and you're seeing the excitement of every person and the noise and the sights and everything. So the idea is that when you're in only a state of hisbonenus, which is in a shmiya, hearing alone, so you're still distant from the actual thing. And therefore, since you're distant, the longing for that thing, it's like what we call b'morgash. In other words, it's felt, which means that you're still really a self. You're not in the experience. It's not the experience that's taken you over. What the experience you're having is of yourself, and you're trying to generate excitement in yourself for that experience. Whereas when you see it, it's possible that the picture can just take you over. You come into like a scene, and it's like just quiets you. You're in like a devekis to the awesomeness of this scene. You're not trying to fathom up and contrive what the thing is. The thing is pashat begiloi before you. It's re'iyah. And therefore, you're just like in a state of quiet devekis to that thing. So that's also called a longing. But it's not a loud longing of you trying to come close to that thing. The thing is before you. And it's like a devekis, like a clinging to that thing, of sort of just being quietly absorbed by it. You follow?
That's higher?
And that's higher because it's like, it's a quiet flame. It's a devekis flame. You know what's that?
So what does that make it higher?
Well, listen, I don't know if it's higher or lower. Each one has a maila, In other words, there's like, it's like, that says that there's the tzaddik and the beini, which is higher. Or the beini. It depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for refinement, tzaddik doesn't offer much by way of refinement. He's already refined. Right? The beini offers you like a geschmack of lo sasuru achroy lebavachem. Tzaddik's not shy to mekayim the mitzvah of don't turn after your heart and your eyes. He's not. Thank you. But if you're looking for someone to not turn after their heart and their eyes, give me a Beinani. So it's exciting. It's fiery. He has to force himself with a passion. Because why? Because he is feeling himself and he has to negate himself. So the bittul that comes out is what we call a bittul hayesh. But let me just finish the point. But when it comes to a tzaddik, so he doesn't offer that, but he offers a whole other thing. His bittul and his devekis to Hashem is incomparable because he's pashat sitting before Hashem. Oh, he doesn't have to fight with the evil. So what is he busy doing? He's just in a manner of clinging to Hashem. It's like difference with sur meiraba asay tov. Yeah.
No, so what's closer? You're saying the newspaper will be closer if you read the news than the like watching news?
What's closer?
Like you said, what's on a higher level? Like
I was saying there's no higher or lower in an ultimate sense. Each one has something going for it. But the way we're describing it now is that we're championing the idea of ratzo, running inside of elokus, even more so like that it's greater than the idea of running towards elokus from outside of it. So therefore the menorah would be a greater level of fire than the mizbeach. Because the mizbeach again is taking worldly things and trying to turn them into godliness. So you're stuck with a feeling of yesh, and therefore it's like a loud, angry thing when you burn something. Right, which is why do we take like this olive oil and the fine wicks, because we want to make a very, very nice, quiet fire. If you burn an animal, right, the fire is like it's not that flammable, right? It doesn't easily offer itself to being drawn into the fire. It's like fighting against the fire. The fire is like attacking it. You see what I'm saying? And so it's because the thing that you're burning is far from God. So yes, it can come close, but it's coming close is like it's ripping itself apart to come close to Hashem. It's taking itself out of its yeshis to come close to Hashem. The oil doesn't work like that. The oil doesn't have much yeshis to begin with. The oil is chokhmah. So it has a devekis. It also turns into fire. It's like it's chokhmah's desire to be inside the keser, right? But it's not loud and crazy because there's no yesh there to begin with. It's already elokus that just wants to be in a state of devekis to a higher level of elokus. Is that clear?
Yep.
And this is called penimius, and the other one's called chitzonius alev. But still, we haven't really understood it the way we're going to. I'm just saying he brings some nice. He brings us back to something we learned before, and it like clicks everything in.
I mean, it makes sense. You have one level that's higher, one level that's lower. The lower level wants to connect to the higher. In godliness, there's billions of levels. So
in godliness itself,
it's not so not understandable. It's like
okay,
the lower wants to go to the higher. No?
The higher source, okay, but I guess the chiddush is that it's not a yesh to begin with. But okay, what's to go to even a higher level of bitul? Fine. Hainu bechinas, okay. V'zeu gam kein bechinas or shelamayla b'mayim. And he says this is the inyan of light, which we call higher than water. What is that all about? There's 3 levels called light, water, firmament. The orumayim shneim b'chokhmah. Right? Both light and water refer to the sphere of chokhmah. Firmament, it's a good name actually, firmament. It means to firm up the water. Right? Because the idea of what is like the rakia, the firmament in the sky, is that the water congealed. So the difference in chokhmah, which is water, it's like fluid, it's not stuck into a yesh, whereas when it goes into bina, it congeals, it takes on a yeshis form. Okay, but we're not really here to talk about bina. We're saying that even in chokhmah, which is called mayim, there's also something called chokhmah, which is or. So both light and water are called chokhmah. But the light is much, much higher level of chokhmah than water is. V'yesh lomar, the hainu b'chinas hakilion, the or choser sheba'ava b'tainugim. And what are we referring to here? Is that there's a certain. In other words, what's the difference between water and light? For a second, water is just stam chokhmah. It's fluid. The idea of chokhmah is that it's like a flash in your mind. You can't capture it. You can't build something really out of it. Like his bonin was binas when you already build it. It's like a sort of ethereal thing, which is water is like that compared to the firmament. But still, light is like a whole other thing. It's not just stam water, this ethereal thing. It's like burning up to get somewhere else. It's chokhmah in a state of ratzo. That's what he's saying. Chokhmah, when it's actually desiring to go to even a higher state and get near the keser, is called light. And what is this? This is called the kilayon, which is the sort of klois hanefesh. What's a good translation for kilayon? It's
it's totally consumed.
Yeah, like when you burn a candle, you're consuming the oil. Let's say so. It's all being destroyed is not the word, but it's
Maybe consumed.
Consumed, let's say, right? But it's also like a longing, right? It's like something is like it's continuously going out of itself. That's the idea, and this is the kilayon of the or choser. Shaba'ava b'tainugim. So what's or choser? Is that there's this notion of the light coming down from above. That's called or yashar, right? And then the or choser is the interest of the light to return to its source. It's tshuva, right? So you feel yourself to be separate, and therefore you want to return to your source. And this is what we're saying is the kilayon, this like continuous emptying out of yourself, which is called the love of tanugim, the love of delights. But it's a very unique love because, as we said before, between the fire of creation and the fire of Elokus, this is a type of love which you do not feel yourself. The difference is, as we said several times before, you can love Hashem, or alternatively, Hashem's love can be in the place that you are. It's like bittul b'metzias, right? You're no longer there, and so who's doing the loving is not you towards your beloved, but whatever your beloved loves, the Eibishter, how he experiences love, it's found inside of you. And you're just basically in a state of constant negation of self to allow that experience to be found inside of you. Right? If you want God to be in your place, you have to empty yourself out. So there's a process of I'm emptying myself out, which is basically I feel myself and I'm trying to, sur meira, turn away from myself. That's a feeling of love which is felt by you. You feel the love. Whereas when you're emptied out and you're in a state of continuous emptiness, like Moshe Rabbeinu, Nachnu Ma, he was not a being that had to continuously empty himself out. He was on a state of bittul. Therefore, what could reside in him was the love of Hashem, Ava B'tainugim, a love of delights, which is unfelt. It's not felt by him. He's not feeling good. There's a spiritual high where you get something out of it, and therefore it's already not that spiritual. If you're getting something out of it, it's not that spiritual. That's what most people are sort of running for. But the true spiritual high is Hashem is high. When is Hashem high? When the entity in the world isn't feeling anything, and it's literally just a mishkan for Hashem. Hashem is in that place. It's not the feeling of the creation wanting Hashem, which basically is, even though it's better than wanting a hamburger, it's still wanting something. It's still selfish. But if you have this Ava B'tainugim, it's a love and a longing which is not felt inside of you. And again, he's like leading us up, but we're going to try and understand it. We're going to have to flip back to a previous page, and hopefully we'll get it over there in deeper. The or who